Hello, welcome. This business here, once again, with another fireside chat in the Ancient Grove. If you listened here before, we're myself and other speakers in this stream are members of the Conclave of Artar. Conclave of Artar is a duchy within the Kingdom of Warner. And we give these fireside chats in the Ancient Grove to talk about some community topics and give an opportunity for our community members to jump in and let their voices be heard and drive some public speaking and information around what is the Conclave, what is Chronicles of Elyria, what is Soulbound Studios, and what we know or think we know, or maybe what we think we know that we don't know about the upcoming game, The Chronicles of Elyria. Now, if you're interested, if we've piqued your interest, or if you want to fact check us, all the information that I talk about and that we pull from in this Ancient Grove chat comes from the Soulbound Studios Chronicles of Elyria webpage. Now, there should be a link below in the stream to direct you to their website if need be. As I mentioned before, the Conclave of Artar is a duchy within the Kingdom of Warner. Kingdom of Warner has their own website, and there's some information on there as well about the community, about the things that the kingdom's doing, and about the different groups associated with it. So, if you're interested and want to know more about the community at large, I do recommend that you go through and look into what's going on, what information we have available for you there. There's things as simple as community guidelines, or what makes the Kingdom of Warner, to histories, lore, stories that community members have created for the community as large, as we wait for the release of the Chronicles of Elyria. If you were listening to us last time, it's about a week and a half ago, we had a little section at the end where we gave a shout out to some of the community artists. Now we're going to start here just really quick, circling back to what we said before, and what we've got up right now is a image of the artwork that Glenn Cooper has put together on the Conclave of Artar's location within the Kingdom of Warner. Now this is based off of, or at least the duchy lines and the coastlines and the geography is based off of the map selection that we saw in December. So as NA East selected the server and the map that will be populated inside the Chronicles of Elyria, Glenn Cooper took that image, that map, and put in a interpretation and some pretty little art. So just a shout out to Glenn and his work with that as we've come along and done those things. So if you see him in the Discord, let him know he did a good job. We definitely appreciate any effort that our community members take to enriching the lives of the community and of the Conclave and the Chronicles of Elyria. We have people who work on stories, and we have yet to publish any. So if you're an aspiring voice actor and are really looking to reach out and get your voice be heard, you have a soothing or an exciting voice to listen to, please reach out to me, Asbestos, and I can get you lined up with some community stories that I would love to have read and released in more or less an audiobook-like format on our YouTube channel. But what did we come here for today? Well, so the time before, we were talking about not the quest for life and death. I don't remember. I'm gonna have to look back. We were talking about a different subject last time. It was new release titles. The Atlas was on the horizon, and after the release of Atlas, which now is active and growing community in its development phase right now. What can we take from the release of Atlas, or the awaiting release of Atlas, and take and according to the Chronicles of Elyria channel? What do we want to see? What's good? What's bad? What worked out for Atlas, and what really failed to work out for Atlas, and what do we expect? Because those are two completely different business models. They're both creating video games, and sure, those markets that they're reaching are the same, but what did they do good? What did they do bad? And what did that mean? And that's what we were talking about before, but now we wanted to reach out further and give some information about life and death and quests. So I've labeled the topic, the title here, the quest for life and death. And what we really want to talk about, what we want to get some feeling for, is what's going on in Chronicles of Elyria. We're gonna touch briefly about the sparks of life that the studio sells, which is their key into the world. And what does that mean for you as a gamer? How does that engage you? How do you have to be careful about that? Are there risks? Are there benefits? And how do the studio create the balance between making sure that they can stay alive and functioning, along with funding and making things fun for their community? Because if people don't play, they don't stay open, and if they don't stay open, people don't play. So how did they decide, or what direction did they take that model? In talking about the sparks of life, we have to talk about death and spirit loss and those mechanics as far as we know. What do they look like? What do they mean? How do they affect you as a player? And those effects that we see on you as a player. What do the play styles change? And that sort of thing. So I'll talk about what we know and what we've got, and as we have community members bounce in who want to share their views and what they think, we'll hear what they say. For the counts out there who are listening, and if there are counts or mayors or elders or maybe just citizens talking about, there's a lot of opportunity for you to get your voice heard and say, well, we understand that this is how this mechanic works, and this is how we intend to react to that, and vice versa, all going around and whatnot. Anyway, last of all, we started out with the quest. We talked about life, we talked about death, the questing portion. What we really are going to be talking about there is what keeps you playing the game. We want to talk about some old school MMOs, anything from Elyria, if you're around for that, or Ultima Online, to games like WoW and Guild Wars 2 and Star Wars: The Old Republic, and what does quests look like, and what place do royalty, aristocracy, citizens, how do you get gamers to do different things, and what does that mean for the questing system, and what does that play into inside those worlds? So we'll talk about that. We'll describe what we know so far about the quest system, and how each of the different groups of people really fit into that. But starting out right at the beginning, let's get into what is life, what is death. So in Chronicles of Elyria, as far as we know, the system that the Soulbound Studios has intended to send out is all built around this thing called the Spark of Life. Go for grandiose names, maybe not, I don't know, but the Spark of Life is meant to embody the thing that makes you your soul, your the energy that animates a body. Let's not go too metaphysical with it, but that's what they've called it. And you inject a spark of life into a soul, which your character, think the reincarnation system. So your previous lives have all contributed to a soul, and the soul has different aptitudes. Maybe it's really good at pointing out the things that are wrong with the world. Maybe it has an eye for metal and can make armor and weapons, or at least learn how to make armor and weapons a little faster. The spark of life is meant to infuse that soul with life, and therefore creates a new character, a new living player character. Now, this is a really interesting system because according to Soulbound Studios, a character inside their game, when awakened, when you awaken a soul with a spark of life, it's expected to live 70 years. And the way that they've scaled their day, night, year, their seasons, everything that is inherent to the timeline of the game means that about 70 years, an average life is 70 years, and about 70 years, you're expected as a player to go through one real life year. So that worked kind of nice, you know. A Spark of Life currently inside the stores is costing $25. So, you know, after purchasing the game, you know, rather than pay a subscription, you know, rather than struggle to have income come into their studio to be able to improve and invest in the hardware required to maintain a game of the size of Chronicles of Elyria, they say, okay, $25 once a year, and that is our continuing income. That is what you as a player are, you know, giving to the studio to have expansions, to have more information, to have alternate access to continents. But yeah, so that's what they're looking at. So one spark of life infuses a soul for 1 year in real life gameplay. 70 years as a character. But what does that mean? You know, 70 years as a character. You know, what's interesting about 70 years? Well, in the Chronicles of Elyria, as you know, or maybe you don't, your character ages. It starts out young, and as you play, as you go through the thing that is life, you know, it ages. So you start out as a strapping 17, 18-year-old individual, maybe older, maybe younger, who knows. But about 17, I believe, is average starting age. And you go through life experiences, whether that be spending all day, every day, mining wood, mining metal, building forts, building walls, fighting players, fighting NPCs, going through and questing, going through and achieving whatever it is that this sandbox environment throws in your way to grow, to interact with, to be engaged with. You go through and you attack these things. You perform these life tasks and you age. After one not one in game, out of character year of playing this game, you've gone from, you know, 18 years to 70 plus years, you know, depending on a number of factors, and we'll talk about those factors in a little bit. But you know, you come through and you age, you go through, and as you age, I think, you know, what we've got from their website, what we've heard from Caspian and the other developers, is that these players are, you know, the characters, they change like you see in other role playing or MMO like game genres. Not so much MMO game genres, because the aging that we've seen is somewhat unique. You know, you don't always, it's relatively new for the MMO genre that the character you play changes at all throughout the course of a year. I remember playing on WoW, and I would play on WoW. I could go log back in on one of my characters, and I could say, look at that. You know, I haven't touched you in 2 years, but you haven't aged a day. So, you know, the point being there is, you know, this is a new mechanic. This is something special that we can see from this, that people can And there we go. That's gonna be it. When I switched from my previous scene to this scene, I didn't choose the correct scene. Yep.
Yep, you just came through. I can hear you now. So,
Yep.
all those people sitting there for however long you've been going.
Yeah, droning on and on. And for those of you who weren't able to listen, I'm sorry. They were real great things said inside there, and now nobody knows what they were. No, we're talking about different things associated with living, dying inside the Chronicles of Elyria, and how that affects things. I'm not sure where I cut off. This is harkening back to last Ancient Grove when I was showing Glenn Cooper's art, and I popped one up there, but I didn't select the correct cast view. And so we're talking about Glenn Cooper and his wonderful art and all that stuff, and nobody got to hear any of it until I came back and repeated it all over again. Yeah, sorry about that. And if I drop out when I switch between scenes, do reach out and let me know. But so in the quest of life and death, so we infuse a soul, and depending on your package level, depending on how many souls you have access to, you know, that could change some things. Each soul is infused with different aptitudes. So just like somebody today may be born with the aptitude to be a public speaker or to stand up and resist the government, or maybe they're an engineer or a doctor or a plumber. I don't know. People have aptitudes for different things. I am not an artist. Um, Maybe I could sing a little bit, but you know, I don't have that aptitude, but a soul inside COE has different aptitudes, whether they be for mercantile like activities, for blacksmithing, for exploring. Each soul is infused with something, but you have to infuse the soul with a spark of life. You have to, go through and you have to inject what it is to be alive into your soul in order to become a player character. And those sparks of life, um, as I'm not sure if we caught it earlier, but as we said, a spark of life gives you about a year in real life of playtime, depending on a number of factors. Knowing that limit, does that change you as a count, how your play style is, given that it's not a continual I'm going to spend, so WoW I think is $8 or $12 a month in order to have access to their servers and play that game. Since Soulbound went through and chose a different method of sustainable funds, does that change what you think?
So up to this point, I have refused to play games that have subscriptions. I'm not a fan of paying per month for a game, and that cost ramps up very quickly when you play it for a long period of time. But nevertheless, I saw COE and was interested in it, and I don't know that it's going to change my playstyle so much. I know that there are going to be people that try to maximize their lifespan on their souls. So there's going to be a lot of people that play passively. They might have more than one character on their account, and so they might make their count the safe homebody recluse that hides inside their keep, and then have another character that runs around doing all the stuff that they want to do. I can see a lot of people doing that. And then there are some people that thematically want to make their count the renowned person. So, Blob, as an example, another count within the Conclave, he actually wants to be known for being a sort of a warrior count, I guess. So his count is actually going to be out there doing stuff, raiding on the front lines, and not hidden in the ivory tower, so to speak. So I think that is going to be dependent on the person, and I definitely think that that's going to change play styles for some people. That I guess their primary character might be a little bit more passive and quote unquote protected, just so that lands and titles and all that stuff are safer and they maximize their money. But I don't think that's going to extend to everybody. I mean, we've played plenty of games that people like to grief. So there's going to be plenty of those people that want to go the deviant route that are going to have short lifespans.
Yeah, yeah. No, I found it interesting. So you've never I don't want to circle back too much on your particular playstyle, but I think there's a nice point to be made, you know. So you've never reached for subscription styled gaming, you know, areas where they make you pay monthly in order to play on a server and that sort of thing. Um, but you were, you know, willing, or you know, you were at least excited enough about Chronicles of Elyria as a game to say, "Hey, I uh, I really feel like I can jump in and maybe $25 once a year. You know, that doesn't feel like it's too much." Or was it just you're really excited about the game and the way that the studio funds their ongoing operations wasn't really playing into it?
Well, I think it's a little bit more digestible to say, hey, pay $60 a year, $25 a year, however much it is. And then you kind of rationalize it as, oh, well, if I were to buy one video game per year, it would be $60, right? You go buy an Xbox game or whatever. I mean, it might be higher than that now. I mean, it was like $60 5 years ago. So it could be 70 for all I know. But you kind of rationalize it that way versus paying $10 a month where you're paying $120 a year or $12 a month, $15 a month, $8 a month, and the price can be higher. And you could still rationalize it as saying, well, if I really like this game, uh, well, then it's like buying one video game or two video games per year, and then that's justifiable for me. But I'm not that way. I don't know. It's just a mental thing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a subscription. It's just when I play a game and it says I have to keep playing it or I have to keep paying even when I'm not playing it. And some games, if you stop paying, you lose everything. And I was just kind of like, well, that's kind of fucked up. It's like, I bought this game and I was playing it. I've given you a lot of money. So if I play for a year and I've given you $120 and then I stop paying it and my account goes inactive, you essentially delete everything and I have to recover my account. Now, I can still recover the account, but maybe all the characters are gone. Not every game does that, but there are some that have done that in the past. So it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth.
No, I gotcha, and I've played a few of the full wipe on when you stop paying, and that is there's always it feels like there's almost a balance, I guess is what I'm saying, you know, between studios that you know either need to make money or need to have enough money to sustain a game, and what they give to their players because of it. So I played WoW, vanilla WoW, up to the Wrath of the Lich King. And I fell out after that because I just wasn't having enough enjoyment out of the new content. But you know, when you end up paying month by month by month for these games, you definitely have an expectation that it should be fun, it should be engaging, and they need to be doing work to make sure that it's A, stable, B, you know, available, C, there's new content such that I will be able to log on tomorrow and do something different or do something that allows me to continually feel satisfied with that gameplay experience. Now, with the Chronicles of Elyria model, we haven't talked about this. So I'm going to go quick sidebar in terms of what it means to, we said there's factors that contribute to, do you live a full year or not a full year? One of those factors being your recognition or how famous or infamous you are. So people who are account like yourself, Tiberius. If you were to die, if someone were to come up behind you with a knife and stabby, and you go on a spirit walk, the amount of spirit you lose or game time that you lose because of that, maybe it goes from a year to 11 months and 20 days for dying. Somebody like Duchess, if she dies, that significantly diminishes the amount of game time that they have available. And there's other things associated with it. So the studio has released information. So if you say don't eat or you get attacked by something, a wild animal, and it knocks you out, there's a level of death quotation marks, that is unconsciousness.
Mm-hmm.
They say you're just having to wait for a time until you gain enough ability to pull yourself off of the ground pull yourself up by your bootstraps and continue on your way doing whatever it is what you were doing, whether that was mining, hunting, fighting, whatever it was. There's you get knocked unconscious, and that's a level of death to a degree. I'm not sure if that level of death has a spirit loss associated with it. There's not really good information on their site in terms of if you lose spirit at that step. I get the feeling that you don't. I think it's just you got knocked out, shame on you kind of thing. But if, say, you got knocked out and, you and me, Tiberius, we met in a back alley, a deal goes south, I didn't give you your drugs, you didn't give me my money, we came to blows, and one of us knocks the other one out, there's a second level of death there where, similar to, it's not quite a coup de grace, but there's a level of death such that your body, it's an out-of-body experience.
Mm-hmm.
You exit your body as a spirit, and you have to make your way either back to your body or back to a location where you can be resurrected. And we know from what the studio has said that is a spirit loss like action, and I think that includes coup de grace like actions. I don't remember, and I'm searching through my notes right now looking for where they describe the coup de grace, because that more or less what we described there, where how you have a small out of body experience, is the second level of death, and then the third level of death, and maybe this is the coup de grace kind of thing, and maybe it's a ritual, maybe it's not, but somebody kills you, somebody destroys your body, and you can't come back to your body. You don't have that choice, and therefore you have to jump through a loop or a hoop in order to regain the ability to play as an active player. And there's some fun factors that they have on their site regarding the spirit trip, as they label it. You get tethered almost to your body or to the resurrection location, and there's a small silver cord that will lead your body to where you can join the living once again, is the way that they phrase it on the website. But with this idea of spirit loss, this kind of gets back to a point that you were making before. There's different play styles, and different play styles have different effects. And we've got this community of people coming out there, and you've got people who want to play it really safe. They don't want to lose any spirit. They don't want to have the spirit loss mechanic reduce the amount of time they get to play the game, because then they have to chuck forward $25 more in order to be alive, be well, and play a different character. Because you correct me if I'm wrong, Tiberius. If you're in game and we have a bad deal and I kill you, and suddenly all of your spirit has been exhausted because of that. Maybe you died 10,000 times before. That's the end of Tiberius Titus Magnus. You're going to have to start Tiberius Titus Magnus the second. And you're going to have to scale up all of the mechanics associated with it. You're going to have to work. Right?
Your character. Oh, try to think about how to. Your named character can perma die, but your soul does not.
Yes.
So yeah, if you die too much, you can experience permadeath. If you get to the coup de grace, you may experience permadeath. If you are a high value person, let's say a king, and someone assassinated you, who knows what that does to your lifespan? Maybe it just kills you outright right then and there. That character in name is dead, but the soul that they carried isn't. It goes back to your pool of resources. So assuming you have an heir, you should be able to fold that soul into the new character, whoever your heir is. And so you can pick up right where you left off, as far as play time is concerned. As far as skills are concerned, that's a completely different story, because that gets into some other stuff that I could speak about, but that's a little bit longer of a conversation.
Yeah, but I think that's why they classify different levels of death. Whether it's incapacitation or coup de grace, or the death of the, not the soul, but of the player character, the individual. Like you said, Tiberius, souls, for all intents and purposes, as far as we know, hint hint, wink wink, are immortal. You cannot have a soul die. Now, would that be entertaining
Oh.
and fun? If maybe a dark pact with some religious figure, you could create a soul death. Might be a bit trolly, but if it's expensive enough, it could suit gameplay like needs. But yes.
I don't. I know what you were hint winking about, and I believe that's going to have to be physical things. And I don't believe a soul is something that you could pick up and put in anything. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yep. I mean, the studio has talked about the idea, or the theory of liches and vampires, and what that could mean for different players, play styles, and stuff like that, and whatnot. We'll see as we get up. 99% of players, the way that we encounter and interact with the life death system is that you get incapacitated or you get killed, and most of the time, the work that you've put into that player character, you get to retain that, and then on the off chance that you've been knocked out far too many times, or killed far too many times, you may see that your lifespan on that character is decreased, such that you'll have to inject a new spark of life into a new character with a new set of stats. But
So something that I would comment about, keeping your stuff from your previous life and all that. The way that I look at it, and I think anybody looking at it, I think this is a great way for anybody to understand it and look at it and to think about the whole death system and what are you actually keeping and what are you losing and things like that. How I look at it is I look at it as proficiencies versus skills. So as you go about your life and you're doing your tasks, you're earning skills, but you're also earning proficiencies at the same time. So maybe you become a master blacksmith. Well, when you become a master blacksmith, you might have some passive ability applied to your soul that says, well, any skill that is lesser than master within the tier that you went through, you earn faster. And so what happens is when you die and you start your new character, you don't start as a 15-year-old master blacksmith. You start as a normal apprentice. But because you were a master blacksmith in your previous life, you've built up a proficiency, which might be like a 0.25% increase to your experience earned for those skills. You accumulate skills faster and you earn and train faster. So, what it allows you to do is to get back to a master blacksmith faster. So the more lives you have, so Tiberius the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, all the way to 28. If every single one of those characters has all become a master blacksmith, that means on my 30th character, I'm almost instantly learning and picking up skills um, of like how do I make an ingot? How do I do all this stuff? Like maybe I only have to go to the forge once, and I instantly have finished that skill. I don't have to make 100. I only have to make one because my skill is that good. And what that'll allow the devs to do is incorporate the skill tree that they want to keep adding to into the game world. So if they want this ever expanding skill tree that gets into better and better technologies without removing previous technologies, then you have to have a sort of a proficiency system. If you're going from uh, the Stone Age type weapons all the way up to the Damascus Steel Age type weapons, there's a lot of time and a lot of experience in there. But blacksmiths today understand the fundamentals from way back when, and they can automatically go to steel weapons. They have access to steel and they're working with steel. They don't have to start with stone and then go to bronze and then go to, and so on and so forth. And so we as a society have kind of built in a proficiency. Like we have textbooks that tell you this is how you do these things. And I think that's how the world's going to work. And I think that's how the souls are going to work. is you build up these innate proficiencies that allow you to get those earlier skills super fast so that the world is continuously improving and changing. And that's how they get to more, don't want to use the word modern, but more advanced technologies, working through the different types of metals and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
Anyway, so skills and proficiencies.
Yeah, and I hadn't mentioned proficiencies yet. I'm very glad you brought that up because I think that's their counterbalance to you die, you experience true death in their world, and how do you deal with that? How do you come back from true death? Is it that 50,000 hour grind back up? Well, we're gonna throw you a bone. Maybe you have that proficiency bonus. Now that's not to say, and the studio has been very vocal with they want players to feel like they can take risks. They understand they have created this model for life and death such that you have the ability to die. You have the ability to die permanently after enough spirit loss, and they don't want that to necessarily restrict people who want to take risks because they say, with great risk comes great reward. Um, and they've said things like, there's the chance that your soul has an X percentage is very low percentage. I don't know if you, Tiberius, or I saw you jump in, Duchess, remember what they said in terms of a percent chance, but there's these talents that a soul may have, and they're not accessible on infusion for a soul. So you might play a soul 5 or 10 times before you unlock the special ability of that soul. But there's this slim chance that your soul, and I think it was 5%. 5% sounds about right, and I'll find the data for it later. But there's this chance that you have your soul have a special talent, and in order to unlock that talent, you have to take a risk. Maybe you're a master smith, and you've been a master smith for the last 2 lives, but you never went to Krakatoa in order to forge your weapons in the heat of the volcano. Well, maybe after forging and or dying inside the volcano, you've unlocked this talent, this skill, this latent potential inside your soul, and it gives a modifier to your blacksmithing abilities. Or maybe it allows you to throw fireballs and you become overpowered. Who
So,
knows?
a couple things on that, from my understanding, and I'm a fallible human being, but I'm pretty sure uh, there's two things there about how you might be able to get something special. For a skill like latent or dormant abilities within a soul. And when I say abilities, I don't mean like I can fly. No, none of that kind of stuff. But just like extra proficiencies in something, or the soul might be highly skilled in something, or it might have a bunch of different skills that it already has proficiencies in. Now, how do you get this? One of the things that they've talked about in the past are these things called old souls, which if you go all the way back to the Kickstarter and when the website first came out, how they had the stretch goals and all that other stuff that they were trying to get people to back the game for. One of them was Old Souls at one point in time. And if I remember correctly, we had another event where Old Souls came back into the conversation. And I think the community, quote unquote, earned Old Souls as a possibility. Now, what that means is not everybody gets this thing called an old soul, but there's a chance that when you're going through character creation and all that stuff, based on what attributes you're looking for, you might have a chance. It could be 5% or 2% or 10%. I have no idea, but there's a chance that you could get access to an old soul. Now, the old soul is one of those things that they haven't really talked too much about what it would have, but I believe from what they've hinted is that these old souls would have these proficiencies, maybe, or innate proficiencies in something. So it's a brand new soul for you. But because it's an old soul, it's been considered to exist in the gaming world prior to when we come into it, and so it's already earned life experiences, and that's why it's an old soul. It's already earned experiences, which means it already has proficiencies, so if you select it, you get proficiencies to whatever is in that soul. Now, you don't get to pick it, it's just random, so you could have a former master smith, as a soul. And if you don't want to be a blacksmith, well, it's kind of like, well, tough noogies. I'm sorry. Um, and to touch on that, I personally, even if I had, an epic bard soul, let's say, and there's no such thing, but I'm just trying to throw something out there, outlandish. If I had a soul that was an old soul and it had proficiencies in something that I don't think I would ever use, I would still take the soul. Again, because there's a difference between skills and proficiencies. Because the soul retains these proficiencies, they will always be there. So every time I create a new character, I can go down new skill trees. There's no problem with that. I can do whatever I want with my skills. I'm just accruing more proficiencies and different abilities. So I'm not focusing on something. I'm not becoming a master in something, and I'm not building up these very, very strong, powerful proficiencies in a single skill. I'm being more of a jack of all trades, and I have proficiencies with a lot of different things. So you can do whatever you want with any character, and you don't have to worry about not being able to function or, well, Joe Blow over there is going to be so much better than me because he does the same thing every time he does it. All it means is because he's built up those proficiencies, he will be able to get there quicker naturally. Now, if you play more, if you're invested in the game, you could get there. It'll just take you a little bit longer because he's earning more experience. But there's nothing stopping you from becoming a master blacksmith or a damn good PvP or a master brewer. You know, it's just if you go down the same path is a lot. If you focus on one skill, you'll earn those skills faster. But those proficiencies the soul keeps. It's just the skills that get reset. So I would pick the old soul. Even if I don't think I would ever be a bard, just having those proficiencies there over picking a blank soul that has zero proficiencies, I'm still better off picking the character that has some proficiencies. So my recommendation to anybody who comes across that might find it, take it. And then the other thing that they talked about had to do with Destiny. Uh, and I don't believe this is NDA or anything, but I will keep it very succinct, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because I can't remember if it was NDA or not. And I spent too much money on this game. I don't want to be like banned. But they talked about Soul Destiny. So when you build your character, there are things that can happen in the world that are loosely related to the abilities or the things that you're trying to do. So if you wanted to be a master blacksmith or if you wanted to be a master explorer, right? Um, because of the traits that you picked, there is a possibility that there are things that could be happening in the world around you, and how you interact with those things is going to change your story, the in-game story, and whether or not you get anything kind of quote unquote special. So they had mentioned random events that could occur in the world. How you interact with those random events could get you a reward. So, as far as the what you were talking about finding a special item that gives you proficiencies, or somehow finding something as a character and your character getting some special um, ability or something like that, that could happen. But it's all linked to your destiny and how you interact with the world. So if you happen to find if any NPC walks up to you out of nowhere, because we know that there aren't supposed to be any or not that many NPCs that are giving out quests and stuff. It's supposed to be a user-driven world. Any NPC comes up to you and they're like, "Hey, I need help with this," or if you get into a conversation and somebody's like, "Oh, did you hear about such and such over in the what's it place?" You probably should go there and check it out because that might be something pertinent to your soul and that might be part of your destiny. And you might get something special out of it. So I wouldn't ignore everything when you're playing this game because that could give you access to, old soul type features, these natural um, proficiencies and stuff. And who knows? They might even make it. I'll use a blacksmith as an example again. If you become a master blacksmith and you make some like super badass weapon, maybe if you're the first person that ever did it, there'll be something special for those people that become like legendary blacksmiths or legendary artists or things like that. So they're trying to be fun and they're trying to promote the story of the world. So there's a lot of RPer type people that work for Soulbound Studios. So I very much could see them doing something like that to help promote people trying to create a narrative within the world. Giving some sort of benefit or some passive buff for doing something special or something that impacts the world in a major way.
Yeah, and so you started this all out with we were worried about the NDA. There was a public Q&A in June, July. We'll take a quick look here and see about the date. June 20th. June 20th, if you check out the Chronicles of Elyria YouTube channel, they have where they describe and talk about, it's about an hour-long conversation about the player destiny system, and that is what Tiberius is referring to in there. That is they're talking about things like the souls and the talents and who the proficiencies pass on. That was described inside there, just from my 30-second jaunt through 5 different portions on that. But no, I think it's really interesting the way that Soulbound Studios has come around, because they're building the physical structure of this game. It's all Unreal Engine objects and movements and different skins and layers and stuff like that. And then they've got that Soulbound engine underneath it, which was really meant to, at least from what I remember from their discussions and from what Caspian has talked about in the Discord, about driving, like you said, the RP and the big world movement like events. We had the Searing Plague 2-3 months ago. Maybe it was longer than that, 4 months ago. But the Searing Plague as a community event really gives a good example of what I believe, the things I know, the things I think I know, and the things I don't know. What I believe is events that they want to inject into the macro world with the Soulbound engine, and the Destiny system being that Soulbound engine to say, you have the potential to unlock things by being exposed to them, or you have the potential to have an experience because of the Destiny engine. As I quickly go through what their transcript was for that, and I think that's really important because it gives us a lead in to this idea of quests. What do we see in quests for other games? And because Soulbound Studios is not, a lot of MMO studios give a statement. It's the statement is, we can't compete with WoW when it comes to the sheer quantity of quests, because Blizzard's team there, Blizzard anyway, the team associated with WoW has god awful number of quests you can do across every area and across different functions, and you have to have special keys to unlock certain quests and all that. Like it's an old, well developed quest system. Well, what's Soulbound Studios' take on that? What does Soulbound Studios intend to do to promote this environment such that you're able to come on and play and feel accomplished? Because that is what quests do in WoW. You go to a quest, you get a quest, you grab a book from another guy and deliver it to a third guy, and you get that $10 or 20 gold piece bounty for that. I mean, it's a digital system. You didn't really affect anything, at least, especially not in WoW. You didn't change the course of the game, but you do feel some gratification for it, a reward of this or that, but that's very static. The Soulbound Studios and the player destiny system kind of takes a hand off of the idea of questing, or what is a quest. They intend to drop, at least as far as I've heard inside the different levels of access, they intend to drop a world where you have potential. I think that is the best way to phrase it. You have potential to do quests but they might not be created by the studio. I know as a mayor myself, we have the intention to create quests for resources, quests for bounties on people. I mean, the whole bounty system is really a quest system in itself. You know, how do you adapt to the non-WoW like model for questing, and what does that mean for the Chronicles of Elyria? Do you have an opinion on that, Tiberius or Duchess?
Uh, well, I've kind of blanked on. I'm not sure how to relate it to WoW because I've not really played WoW. I understand the quest system is very much. I don't want to say point and click, but you know what you're getting into. You know what to expect. It's like go here, talk to this. It's like any MMO, and I have played MMOs before, Guild Wars. I played Rift back when it was a subscription, but I didn't pay for it, which is why I still stand by that. I had never paid for it. Uh, but I'm trying to think of how to word this, and how the studio is trying to go about this. So think about this as the real world, right? Think of human history. Uh, how do our quote unquote quests work, right? Well, you have a business that puts out a job description. That's essentially like a quest. I know that sounds really boring to be like, well, my quest is to be an accountant and to count numbers. Yeah, it's really boring, but that's essentially what's happening is, quests exist in real life. And it's kind of how they're trying to build it in this world. We were hunter and gatherers, and we couldn't function as a society because we didn't have systems in place to function on a higher level. So in COE, you can do the same thing. If you're an individual or you're a small group, you don't have to worry about farming and doing kind of mundane tasks. You can run around and try to steal stuff if you want to, live off the land, whatever. Small group, it's easy to do. But when you start getting into towns and stuff like that, and you get into these bigger and bigger environments, you need more people that are doing specific tasks in order for that town and that environment to function, much like the real world. In order for a city to function, you have waste management people, you have to have, mom and pop stores, you have to have some big businesses, you have to have jobs for people. And same sort of thing is going to happen in COE. We have towns and we have cities and stuff like that, villages. Well, for that village to function, what are you going to have to have? Well, you're probably going to have a bunch of people that want stuff from a blacksmith, but um, one person who's not focusing being a blacksmith is not going to be able to keep up with the amount of demand coming out of a large town. Surely if you live in like a 5-person sort of village, then yeah, you could probably have one person who's a blacksmith and part time, and it works out fine. But if you're in a 50-player, 30 NPC, so 80 people, in some sort of town, then you probably are going to need someone devoted to being a blacksmith in order to keep up with the demand, for farm equipment, for weapons, and so on and so forth. I mean, you might have enough demand that another blacksmith opens, and now you have two blacksmith shops. Both are manned by players. Maybe one's a player, one's an NPC, and you got a little bit of competition. You've got a market developing, and I think that's what they're trying to do. Is rather than give us this point and click mundane, you get one gold piece, go here, talk to this person, go here, talk to this person, and those dumbass quests that I see in a lot of games that I can't stand is where you get jockeyed back and forth. You like pinball off 2 or 3 different people, and you're just talking to them. It's like, why not allow me to? I'm not your messenger. Just give me all the things that you need me to say, so that I only have to do it once, rather than walking back and forth 5 times. And I think they're trying to avoid that. So there might be some NPC involvement in questing, but most of it is going to be user driven. You're going to have somebody who's a fighter who doesn't know anything about blacksmith skills, and he needs weapons. So he's going to go to a blacksmith and say, "Hey, can you build me these weapons? I need them." And if you're a blacksmith, boom, you've got a job. You're making someone weapons. Now, as a blacksmith and you're making a lot of weapons, you don't have time to make your own food. So you might go over to the villager stall, the farmer who sets up like a little farmer's market corner in your town, and you go there and you pick up some watermelons or whatever it is so that you can eat. So I think they're trying to build a functional economy in the world that is going to be driven by the players, and thus all the questing is going to be done by players. And some of that, yes, is going to be mundane. If you're a blacksmith, you're just going to have a lot of blacksmith jobs. You're not running around in explosions and hail of arrows. But there are going to be people who PvP, and just like you're going to have people who are griefers who are going to be raiding, you're going to need protection. So there might be a quote unquote police department, a sheriff's office of a few people whose sole jobs are to patrol and deal with bandits or maybe wild animals that are getting too close to the settlement. uh, so I find that kind of exciting. Now, it is a little dangerous because you're relying on the community to do all this stuff. So you you could get bored. I mean, if you went into WoW and there weren't any quests, what are you really doing? Okay, well, you're getting into raiding, I guess, and they're not going to have that in COE, at least not day one. Um, so that I think it's a good thing and it's a bad thing because it really will make a dynamic world. It really will um, be a fun, interactive environment where things are always changing. So it won't stagnate if the players are there. Right, and I think that's the big thing is they're setting up this world that if the players are there and they're interactive in the world, it will function fantastically and it will be a revolutionary game. The question will be, are the players going to be there? Are the players going to isolate themselves and say they don't want to, well, I don't want to be a blacksmith and that be all that I do. I want to also go outside and do blah 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 blah. So there's there's that worry that I have with regard to how their system's going to work. But I think that's what they were trying to do is get away from that questing system, the mundane, generic, repetitive style of things, and then make it more of a community developed system. Have the players interacting with each other so that it's not you having the same dialogue from three different NPCs. You're actually interacting with the player who you know, you could kill if you wanted to. If you disagreed with your drug deal, you could attack them if you wanted to, but that also might have consequences because those people in that town that you were buying opium from might say, "Hey, well, we need our guard to go after this person because they're killing our dealers." So I don't know. You can do whatever you want in this world. You could build whatever you want. We just have to have the players there.
Can I get a sound check, please?
Yay, you're working. You were
You're doing
muted
good.
forever.
Yeah, I just installed a new network yesterday, so I had to play with some prioritization because you were both robotic. On the topic, I think Tiberius hit quite a few really important points, and I find it interesting that here we have three different levels of government represented, both the duchy level, the county level, and the mayor level, and you're both elders within the conclave as well. I believe that the questing system specifically is obviously directly linked to the ability to put out contracts. That's, as Tiberius had mentioned, that's going to be one of the ways that quests occur is by standing contracts or special contracts. And for me, all three levels of government are going to have to use this system quite extensively. And I think a little bit counter to Tiberius's point, or I will say uh, slightly less important, do I think that you need players to fulfill the contracts? I think the NPC system, when you place contracts out on the open market, for instance, the blacksmith example, when a blacksmith says, I will buy up to 5,000 melted ores, ingots. So somebody can go mine the ore, and that's a contract. Someone can then produce the ingots. That's a separate contract. And then now, finally, that blacksmith who has an open standing order placed in his market that says 5,000 ores at this price. Now you've got three different levels of contracts and quests essentially that have been created just by one blacksmith saying, I want to buy X amount of Y. And in that way, then the blacksmith is now going to be able to use his, develop his skills as a blacksmith. The guy that mined the ore developed his skills as a miner. The person who took the raw ore and converted it into an ingot have developed their skills as a is that as that middle producer. So this is how the skill system is linked into it as well. I believe that while this will be mainly player driven, this is also the basic hierarchy of needs that the NPCs as AI will be producing these types of quests and contracts as well. And so as we look at it from the top down, duchy level down, the health of our duchy is what's going to determine the plentifulness, my new word, of different types of quests, different types of contracts that are out there and available, how many NPCs are chasing after those, how it then affects market forces, etc. From the top down, this system specifically is very important, and it's not just player driven. It'll also be what feeds and fuels the health of each of our different entities, so duchy, county, mayor, down to individual settlements. This is going to be a vital system for them.
Yeah, and I like that you bring that up, Duchess. You know, that system from the duchy down, even you can extend it even to from the kingdom down through the contracts. You know, that's going to be essential for the day-to-day questing and operations of the player base. You know, as you said, and I'm going to roll back to what we talked about slightly before we got into questing, or as we were getting into questing. You know, we've got this system, as Duchess here was describing it, about local player driven contracts and NPC enabled contracts and NPC contracts, and this all exists underneath that destiny system of the Soulbound engine. Because why does a kingdom do something? The king decides to, you want to build X. Maybe if we're talking, not American history, U.S. history, you've got the Aztecs building, Tenochtitlan, or one of the ziggurats, the pyramids. How do you do that? How do you, that's a kingdom level order coming through a quest saying, the king saying, people were building this. And like you said, they break that down and create a bunch of sub quests. But what helps influence those leadership decisions? I think some of that's going to be the Soulbound engine. If the Searing Plague suddenly starts breaking out in Kingdom 3, well, the different kingdoms may, create other stimuli to help deal with that, or the different governmental systems will. And so it's really exciting to see how the contract system and those economies will interact, how they will be healthy, not healthy, given the inputs from the studio and the Soulbound engine. Tiberius, you brought up the concern about players. And Duchess rightfully so brings up NPCs are to some degree players in this contract environment. Soulbound Studios, I don't know if either of you remember this, but have stated on a few occasions that, Chronicles of Elyria is a wonderful experiment in social structures. Whether or not the servers explode and melt into troll-hating miasma, or if they can work together at different levels to create structures like exist in our societies and nations right now, will be very interesting to view. And I'm my 2 cents on what was being discussed there with the quests and the life and the deaths of different areas. But yeah.
So I don't think we're in disagreement on anything. Like NPCs will be in the world, but the one sort of comment that I'll make with NPCs is that they're gonna do what they're told in a very crude, generic sense, right? Their character's designed to be a blacksmith, or their character's designed to be X, Y, or Z, right? And so they're gonna be going down that destiny for their NPC character. So if they're a blacksmith and you as a user need weapons and stuff, you can say, "Oh well, hey NPC, I need weapons. Can you make them for me?" And the NPC may say yes, may say no, and boom, you've got some interaction with the environment. But when I talk about being truly dynamic and the need for having players, is that even though the world is going to exist and there's supposed to be an AI, we all know how AI works in games. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, some are better than others. Uh, the AI is not necessarily going to do anything majorly unpredictable. The devs are going to have to code something to say, hey, you do this. If they want the world to change, or they want some event, kind of like the Searing Plague, but they wanted some, NPC to try to take over the world, right? They're going to have to tell that NPC to do it. Um, versus players on the lowest of levels and all throughout the system are people, right? People are emotional. People can be irrational. Uh, that's what creates a more dynamic world where all of a sudden the fate of the environment could be going one way, and all of a sudden it does a complete 180. And it's because someone somewhere with a lot of influence was just like, you know what, I want to buck the system a little bit, or a group of people, or that's what I mean by being a little bit more dynamic and hoping that you have the player base, because even though it'll still be a good game, there will be NPCs in the environment. The one thing that'll make it not feel so much like a game and more realistic and more immersive is having more players in the environment where you're interacting with more people, because there's a certain, what is it, uncanny valley. When you're dealing with people, it feels different, it smells different than when you're dealing with an AI in a game. So that's what I meant more about being dynamic and hoping that the players are there to be able to do this stuff. Now, it'll still be a full functioning world. It's before we even come into the game, the devs have said that the world is supposed to exist in equilibrium. Like, all the towns are supposed to be able to function standalone. They're not relying on anything. They've got the resources that they needed, and it's up to us to expand their scope. Um, so the world is supposed to be functioning before the players even get in there, which means there's going to be NPCs, there's going to be farms, there's going to be businesses, there's going to be all this other stuff. So it's still going to be a flush world. You're just not going to have any randomness, I guess, or you don't have as much potential at randomness, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It's a starting point, a stepping stone for the major release, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, the world is a support system for the players, but the world is not meant to be the driving force for the players. The players are meant to be the driving force.
I think that's good. I think like you said, I think we're all in agreement that that is what excites us about the Chronicles of Elyria. That is what pulls together people from different walks of life and different areas of the world to be in support of this game. We've been streaming for about an hour 12 minutes, and we've just more or less wrapped up the quest section. Duchess, you just jumped in. You've been listening for a while. Tiberius, you've been here for a good time, and I appreciate that. Is there anything that about life, about dying in the game, about living in the game, and the soul system, and about questing that you feel you want to go into further? Otherwise, we'll start our circle arounds and our goodbyes, and I'll get this published onto the YouTube.
Yeah, for me, and apologize that I was a little bit late. I was screaming like a banshee at my new Wi-Fi system for most of the discussions. I think very simply and in 2 bullet points, this is completely unheard of that a system with permadeath is also a system that the players control their world. Right? You've had those in 2 different ways. Separately, but bringing those 2 aspects together is just going to be, it makes this a fundamentally different environment and world and creation that I think this is going to make this game one of the most exciting and interesting and intricate dances. The idea that as a Duchess, I can be perma-killed and lose everything. It's like the difference between playing poker online and with fake money versus real money, right? It's like when you know that there is the possibility now that a group of mayors band together and decide to throw you out as the count. Like that, it just changes the whole idea of this being a game. It makes it more tangible, more real, and I think that's what the permadeath system enables that, because now there's essentially skin in the game type of thing. I hope that it's as immersive that as we think it's going to be, and I think that that system is going to be key to making that happen. So that was my only 2 bullet points.
I think the game is promising for many of the same comments that were made, but thinking about the stakes being real, you can lose your tangible property, right? If your account, you could be potentially overthrown and your property is taken from you. Now, that's a very extensive, lengthy process, but it is a real thing that could happen. You, as a homeowner in some town, you could have your house burned down, and there could be some people that come through and raid the place. And so that could happen, which makes the stakes a little bit more real. Um, but I also think that they are making good strides so that you don't feel like you've lost everything. And it really will come down to, how does their proficiency system work? How does their soul system work? Because if you're in a town and you're, this amazing blacksmith, and let's say some group comes through and they kill everybody, your character included, and you experience permadeath. The way that this game is set up is, yes, you lost that character, but you didn't lose your soul. Which, even though you're not going to be able to be a 15-year-old boy that's a blacksmith that's making legendary weapons, that's not going to happen. But you get to level through all your skills faster because you've accrued those proficiencies in your earlier life. So rather than having a full wipe, they're still pushing that real world possibility that there are consequences to your decisions, and you need to have a community that can work together. But you aren't going to just be, drugged through the mud if some people come through and they try to grief. Yes, you'll lose physical property, possibly. People could come through and steal everything you own and kill everybody. You still, your inheritors still own your property, so that's good, because they'd have to sit on that property, which is a whole nother discussion. But your inheritors own that property, and anything that wasn't stolen. Potentially the contracts that your family has still exist, so that's still a good thing. So you might be out however many swords and gold you had stored in your house, but you don't lose completely everything. And the one thing that never can be taken away from you are those experiences that you've accrued on your soul. Any proficiencies that you have, any like destiny type things that you've come across. So let's say you had a soul that you became a legendary blacksmith and you found something that gives you an innate proficiency that can never be taken away from you. So anything dealing with your soul's destiny can't be taken away from you. And I think that's cool and different, because in other games, like Life is Feudal and stuff like that, you die, you lose all your skills. You have no proficiencies. You start over. Good luck earning, 0.0025% experience every time you smack your hammer against something, right? So that I really, really like. They're giving you real stakes, but they're not going to hamstring you. You as the soul, you as the character, which I like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that they hit that balance just right.
Well, we'll be wringing our hands and talking to the developers to make sure that we can do as a community everything that we can to make sure that both Soulbound Studios is successful and us as gamers are successful. Because as we talked about last time in the Ancient Grove, Soulbound's trying out this relatively new thing in game design, such that the communities that build up around these new releases, these new games, are integrated into the development of those games and have a degree of input to make those games successful. So before we get to our goodbyes, I just want to plug a few things. If you're listening here, whether it's on the stream or on the YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up and a notification so that you can know when we go live. We try to stick to a regular schedule, but in today's world and economy, that can be difficult. But you want to be involved. If you want to be informed when we go live with these sort of conversations and you want to get involved in them, make sure that you hit that icon or join our Discord. We in the Ancient Grove here, it's been myself, Elder Aspicis, our Elder and Count Tiberius Titus Magnus, and of course the lovely Duchess. We hail from the Conclave of Aratar. If you or a friend are a part of the Aratarian community and you want to talk about something specific, please reach out to me. Maybe you want to talk about crafting, politics. We've been talking about questing and life and death inside Chronicles of Elyria. It looks like next time we'll be talking a little bit more about communities and what players mean, what players do in Chronicles of Elyria. Subject to change, but that's what I'm picking up right now. But reach out to me, and we can put something together to talk about in this media form. If you're looking for other areas to hear similar information or different takes on Chronicles of Elyria, subscribe. Reach out to YouTube and Twitch channels like the Town Crier. There's a Spanish podcast that recently came out, along with things like the Vornir newsletter or the Borderwell Broadcasting Company, something like that, BBC. There's outlets inside the communities around, and do get involved. Do reach out. Do interact with these people. They definitely appreciate the conversations that get driven because people being excited about Chronicles of Elyria. I'm throwing up one last image. When we started this out, we talked about Glenn Cooper and his artwork. I intend to continue posting artwork and community objects that are created by the Conclave of Aratar here. What you're seeing right now is a business card that our Dear Sweet Count created for PAX East a year ago. Shows the Discord link, a link to the Vornir.com /conclave for our duchy, and of course the Chronicles of Elyria website. Community activities like this and in their respective spheres are extremely important to maintaining healthy, happy communities and getting words out so that we can have the people, like Tiberius Titanus said, have the people on launch to make this a proper social experiment. So, do get involved, do get engaged. This has been In the Ancient Grove. I've been your host, Suspicious, along with Tiberius Titus Magnus and the Duchess. We'll see you next time, folks. Bye-bye.